Morning, everybody.
Morning.
So my name is Greg Gurbikian. I'm a Medicare Rockstar. I've personally produced over 100 Medicare supplement policies in a month. How many people in here wanted to learn how to do that? Perfect. So let me ask a question right now. Anybody can answer this. What is the hardest part of phone sales? Huh? Who's that?
Picking up the phone.
Picking up the phone. That's the hardest part of phone sales, is actually having somebody pick up the phone for you. Never ever forget that. The second hardest thing is actually getting them engaged with you. But once you get somebody on the phone with you, that is the hardest part of the entire phone call. Okay? I believe that most people have been taught the wrong way to sell. They've been taught a transactional type of adversarial approach, and that does not work anymore. The problem is, though, is that we live in a transactional world. You do transactions on Amazon. So the customer, the prospect that's coming on the phone with you is used to a transactional type of sale. But as a Medicare Rockstar, you have to be different than everybody else. Okay? I believe that there's three types of salespeople out there. You have your lounge act. Okay? Your lounge act treats this like a hobby. Okay? They don't prepare. They show up late to work. They're not ready for that phone call when it comes into their phone line. They don't practice. But in our business, there's so much business to be had that a lounge act could stay in this business and still be okay. And by being okay, I mean making $30,000 a year. Okay? The second salesperson is your opening act. Okay? Your opening act is a great salesperson. They show up to work on time. Okay? When they need to make some money, they push hard. But they don't do any of the additional stuff like practicing, watching videos, listening, to podcasts, trying to figure out exactly how to get better in their craft. Then you've got the sales rock star. The sales rock star at the end of the day loves the limelight. They love the life that comes with that, and they will do absolutely everything in order to be successful. Okay? And that's what we want to get to as salespeople, is that sales rock star. Now, I say this because at the end of the day, we can all fall into one of those three categories every single day. If I sleep in the morning and I was supposed to get up mentally, guess what I'm being that day? I'm being a lounge act. Okay? So at the end of the day, you have to check yourself all during the day, because guess what? There are rock stars in life, real rock stars, that end up becoming what? A lounge act. They are known as a one-hit wonder, because they never did that extra stuff in order to be successful. So we're going to talk today about 4 things that you need to do in order to be successful as a Medicare sales rockstar. Okay? The very first thing that we're going to talk about is the most important part of the entire phone call. Can anybody tell me what the most important part of the entire phone call is?
The warm-up.
Yep, the opening. Okay. Thank you. The opening is the most important part of the entire phone call. Why is it the most important part?
Because if you can't connect, they're going to be gone.
Correct.
Make or break the whole call.
So every person that jumps on a phone call, what are we viewed as by the other person on the phone? Salesperson, but that's actually a nice term. A telemarketer. We're viewed as a telemarketer. Okay? How long do we have to change that perception of that person?
10 seconds.
Huh?
10 seconds.
10 seconds? Anybody else?
6 seconds.
7 seconds. 5 more seconds.
We have 3 to 5 seconds to change their perception. You have 3 to 5 seconds. And those 3 to 5 seconds, if you do not change that perception, that phone call is over. Okay? Now, you still might get the sale because you were just at the right place at the right time and they viewed you as a transaction. But guess what happens? You can be replaced by another transactional salesperson. So those first 3 to 5 seconds are the most crucial part of the entire phone call. This is where everything starts. Now, there are calls where they might get to the end of the phone call and they tell you, hey, I want to think about it. They're not wanting to say, I want to think about what you just went over. They want to think about if they want to go with you. And guess what? It started at the very, very beginning in those first 3 to 5 seconds. Okay? I had a sales agent that walked up to me and she said, hey, Greg, can you listen to my phone calls? I'm kind of running into a slump right now. I want you to kind of listen to my phone calls, see what I'm doing right. I go, oh, absolutely, I'll pull some of your phone calls. The first phone call I pull up, phone call comes in, there's dead air for about 3 seconds. Thank you for transferring to the, hung up the phone. So later that day, she comes up to me, Greg, did you listen to my phone calls? I go, yeah, I listen to my phone calls. Listen to your phone calls. She goes, what happened? I said, well, let's listen to it. I got a good one. So I played it for her. Okay. What do you think her reaction was?
She didn't know.
Greg, what other calls did you listen to? That was just kind of a fluke.
That wasn't me.
I said I didn't have to listen to any other phone calls. That's the only phone call I had to listen to. Because if you're not prepared for the other person is not going to be prepared for you. Mm-hmm. Okay? I can't stress enough how important those first couple of seconds are of the phone call. You have to literally be so focused and dialed in. Because I have called some of those 800 numbers that we see on TV that we like to complain about sometimes. Okay? And guess what? I listen. I call to listen to how they're responding on the phone. I call to listen to see, would I buy from this person or not? And I'll tell you, most of the time, I would not buy from them because those first 3 to 5 seconds already turned me off immediately. Okay? So the very first thing that you have to do is this, is you have to get away from a transactional approach and get into a relationship approach. When I jump on the phone call with somebody, what I'm doing is I'm looking to create a relationship with you. Whether I can help you or not, I don't know that at this point. All I'm trying to do is create a quick relationship with you. So yesterday, after we left the event last night, I took a Lyft ride. And I had this girl that took me home, and her name was Anita. Okay? And Anita, we started talking about, she was actually from Africa. She was here. A lot of people wouldn't know this by me standing here, but I lived actually most of my life in Africa. My parents were missionaries, and I was in Africa until I was about 17 years old. So she actually lived in the country right next to me. She told me that she had been to the country. I lived in Ivory Coast, 𝘄𝗶𝗹𝗱𝗮. Okay, so we had this really cool connection right off the bat. And when we got to the hotel, this is what I did. I looked her right in the eyes and I said, Anita, you're going to do great things in your life. You are going to bless other people and you are going to make a difference. And she literally went, oh, you just made my entire night. She goes, thank you. I said, no, I could feel your energy. I said, you're going to do great, great things. And I exited the car. Did I change her life? No, I didn't say did I change her night. I said did I change her life? The answer is yes, I changed her life. Okay, because she'll always come back to that moment, whether she realized it or not, somebody just told her that she's going to be great. I do that on almost every single ride I do. I get to know that person in the car, and before I exit that car, I look them in the eyes and I say, you are going to do great things. You are going to be a difference maker and you're going to touch other people's lives. And every reaction is the exact same thing. Wow. Okay. So how do you connect with somebody over the phone? This right here is worth the entire time that you've been in here. What I'm about to say next changed my entire course of my sales history and made me a Medicare sales rock star. And this will make you a Medicare sales rock star, just this one key point. Okay? What is the best way to connect with someone?
Ask them questions. Make a joke.
Commonality.
Be yourself.
Those are all great. Those are all great, but that's not it. Okay? Here's how you connect with somebody over the phone. You have to use their first name immediately, right away. Okay? The sweetest sound to the human ear is your name. Landon means nothing to me.
You know what? I love you, Landon.
Your name means nothing to me. To you, it's the most important thing in the entire world. I'm going to flip it around now. Greg means nothing to you. But to me, that's the most important thing in the entire world to me, because that defines who I am. That's who I am. My name is Greg. If I'm in a crowded area and somebody yells, Greg, what do? I turn around. Who knows me? I realize, oh, there's another cool Greg here. I'm not the only cool Greg in this place. So our names define who we are. Okay? I had a sales agent that just started 6 months ago that had been in sales for a long time. And I told him, I said, here's what you need to do. Greg, I've never done that before. I'm always used to calling them ma'am or sir. What does ma'am or sir do? It tells the other person, hey, we're just going to have a transaction right now. This is just going to be transactional. I don't really care about you. I'm just looking for a sale. We both know that, so let's kind of get going. Okay? The first name, and this is something that you may not know, is the first name must be used throughout the entire phone call. Through the entire phone call. Okay? I pulled an old sales call of mine, and I pulled the middle part where I was actually in the pitch. Okay? I was in the pitch. I pulled 5 minutes of that phone call. And in those 5 minutes, I had said that person's first name 11 times. Because psychologically, what that does is this. Each time, and what's your name? George. Each time I say the name George, guess what? George is being attracted to me. And he's starting to like me. He doesn't know why yet. But guess what? The only people that call him George are his friends, people that he knows. So if I just start out the conversation with just George, and then I never say George again throughout the entire phone call, I lose them. Okay? George keeps pulling him back into me, keeps pulling him back into me. So George, let me ask you a question. Blah, blah, blah. So George, let me ask you this. George, each time you say it, it's pulling that person into you and drawing you into that individual. Okay? So you have to use the first names throughout the entire phone call. Not just at the beginning, not just at the end when they bring the check. Okay? You want to do it throughout the entire phone call. Okay? You don't want to say ma'am or sir ever. If you don't know the other person's name, ask it. I am so sorry. I apologize. I didn't catch your name. I will not continue that conversation until I know that person's name. Okay? When you start the conversation out, here's another key point that you want to do. Okay? You want to start the conversation out with this. How have you been? So George, how have you been? Okay? I didn't say, George, how are you doing? Because George, how are you doing is a stop question. It stops it. George, how have you been is saying what? George is already starting to think, like, how do I know this guy? How have I been? Like, he must know who I am. It starts bringing in that relationship. It's starting that relationship right off the bat. So George, how have you been? Okay. Now, once you've done that, there's 3 ways to connect with the person in Medicare sales. Okay, these are 3 ways that I found that I connected with the individual. I knew within the first 30 seconds if I was closing this person based on this I'm about to tell you. The first thing I would do is I would go ahead and I would verify or ask for their zip code or where they lived. Because I want to connect with that person based on where they lived. I live in Tampa Bay, Florida. So if somebody were to call Greg Gurbikian and they found out that I lived in Tampa Bay, Florida, is there anything that's happened in Tampa the last couple of years that might be kind of something good to bring up to Greg Gurbikian? Okay. Like, man, you guys are winners there, man. Greg, man, I wish I lived in Tampa, Florida. Man, what's that like, man? Just winning and winning and winning. Huh? Yeah. Well, I'm not a Rays fan, so I'm a Yankees fan. So that's a whole different story. But I would connect on where they live. You know, if you don't get to know where they live, you don't have the right to sell them. I can't tell you how many phone calls I've listened to. They're 20 minutes on the phone call, and they still don't know the person's zip code or their address. They don't know anything about where they live. Do they live in Idaho? Do they live in Texas? Where do they live? That's being a transactional salesperson if you don't take the time to know where they live. That's the very first thing you need to find out. I listened to a phone call from a sales agent many, many years ago that was struggling, and in the phone call, he asked the person the zip code. He did the right thing, and the guy tells him, I live in Akron, Ohio. Does anybody know anything big that's happened in Akron, Ohio? Is there anything that comes out of Akron, Ohio? LeBron James. Called himself the boy from Akron. Now, if you didn't know that, that's okay. Okay? That's okay. But he had no excuse. He was a very big sports fan. So I pulled him in. I said, hey, where did this guy live? He goes, he lived in Akron, Ohio. I said, is there anything big that's come out of Akron, Ohio? What do you mean, Greg? Is there anything big that's come out of Akron, Ohio? Oh, you're talking about LeBron James? Of course I'm talking about LeBron James. Okay. A lot of people don't know, if I'm talking to somebody in Akron, Ohio, there's actually an Akron, New York. Okay? And there's also something big that's out of Akron, New York. Big League Chewing Gum is actually made in Akron, New York. Okay? So that might be something that I could bring up and strike as a little conversation with this guy from Akron. So he asked me, he goes, Greg, what would you have done? What would you have done once you found out that this guy lived in Akron, Ohio? So I'm going to use you, George. Okay? George, let me ask you a question. Have you ever run into LeBron James, ever?
Not really, but great sports guy.
Yeah, boom. Guess what? Your conversations can be no longer than 15 seconds. Because then you are now moving away from the direction. So these are just to get that connection. You know? So that's awesome, man. I hope that someday he runs into you. That'd be such a cool experience. Let me ask you a question. Now I go into the second thing. So finding out where they live is very, very crucial. The very first thing that you need to do on a phone call. First name, immediately. How have you been? And then right into where they live. The second thing is this, their date of birth. I have had more sales that I've closed because of the date of birth than anything else. And I'll tell you what I did. It's all about connecting with that other person, finding a commonality. Okay? So if you're born in the month of December or the month of March, it's over. It's over. You're done. I'm closing you. Why? So in December, my birthday is December 22nd. Okay, so I'm actually going to give you something you can use even if your birthday is not in December. Okay? Everybody's born in December has been gypped on Christmas and birthday gifts. Okay? So I'd always have a very, very cool little story. So I find out that George is born December 10th. George, man, you and I are in the same community. We're in the same fraternity right now. I said, my birthday is December 22nd, so we both have been gypped on our Christmas and birthday gifts, and George is going to do what? No, I just got a lot of Christmas and birthday gifts all of a sudden. No, we're all the same. Ask anybody that's born in December, they'll tell you that. Okay? So then I would continue the conversation with George. So George, it actually got worse for me. Let me tell you why. At 9 years old, my parents were old. My dad was 55. They were done having kids. And guess what? My mom got pregnant. At 9 years old, I had my sister who was born on December 20th. So I thought it was bad already. I was done. I was done. Okay? So I said, my wife, makes it a point to make a special day on my 22nd birthday because she knows the story. Okay? Guess what George is starting to do? He's actually really kind of starting to like me, doesn't know why. So here's something I want to say right now. If they don't like you, they will not do business with you. If they like you, they might do business with you. If they love you, they're definitely going to do business with you. So hopefully by now George is starting to like, and it's kind of moving to love, and he doesn't know why. But subconsciously it's happening. Okay? March. This is my favorite one. So in March, my wife's birthday is March 5th. My son's birthday is March 19th. And my wedding anniversary is March 21st. Okay? So I tell the person, I go, so let me tell you the story, George. So I'm sitting down with the wedding planner, and we're looking at the dates to get married. And I literally point to March 21st, and I go, honey, that's when we're getting married. She looks at me a little puzzled. Wedding planner kind of looks at me a little puzzled, like, why that, Greg? I said, honey, if there's ever a time in my life where I can't remember that my wedding anniversary is 3, 2, 1, it's time to put me in the old folks' home. And I get that laugh. Guess what? You guys are all laughing right now. It's over. They're going to buy anything from me right now because we've connected. I had a really funny story. I was talking to this guy. I told him that whole story. He's laughing. He goes, Greg, I got to tell you my story. He goes, me and my wife have been married for 40 years, and we're driving down the road. Cell phone rings. We answer it, and it's our son. And he goes, hey, Mom and Dad, happy anniversary. We both look at each other and go, it's our anniversary. We both forgot our anniversary. I go, George, you know why you forgot your anniversary? He goes, why? Because it wasn't 3, 2, 1. That's why it was. That's why you forgot about it. So the opening of your phone call is the most important part of the entire phone call. If you get that down, you're a light speed ahead of everybody else. Yes?
So what do you tell them who you are and what you're calling for?
I tell them that after I've kind of like said, how have you been? Yep. I introduce myself, how have you been? You know, and then I tell them who I am, and then go right into the. Yep. Nope.
Okay.
Correct. So the second part, the second thing that we want to do is the most critical part of the entire phone call. So we talked about the most important part, the most critical part. Does anybody know what the most critical part of the phone call is? What? Nope.
Asking the right questions.
Correct. The discovery process is the most critical part of the entire phone call. So let me tell you what the Lounge Act does. The Lounge Act does a discovery as a checkbox. And you can literally almost hear it as a checkbox on the phone. So let me ask you, what do you have for your insurance right now? I have Obamacare. Okay, great. How much are you paying for that? Check, check, check. That's not a relationship. That's a transaction. Okay? The discovery is meant for this, and write this down because this is so crucial. You must be an information gatherer and not an information giver. You will not get anything from me about Medicare, how it works, what happens, what to do, until I know that I can help you out. Many phone calls have started where there's a connection. They got a March birthday. We're laughing. You know, what's this Medicare say? Let me ask you a couple questions. Boom, discovery. You're not getting anything from me, George, until I know a little about your situation. How's it going to work? I'm here to help you. And then once I find out that I can't help George, I'm going to say, hey, George, it's so great meeting you. And I said, never forget the 3, 2, 1. I'll see you later. Bye. You know, and I'll go through comments. So you have to view yourself as a doctor. When I walk into a doctor's office, I say, hey, my doctor, my chest is kind of hurting me a little bit right now. You know, oh, Greg, we need to do open heart surgery right now. Let's get to the hospital. Let's go. A prescription without a diagnosis is malpractice. A prescription without a diagnosis is malpractice. Okay? I have to take the time to find out what that person's situation is before I ever even talk to them about Medicare. So we do the opening, the discovery process, So let me give you an example of a lounge act and a rock star. So here's the lounge act. George, what do you have for insurance right now? Oh, I have Obamacare. Okay, what are you paying for your insurance right now, George? That's the lounge act. So now let me tell you about the rock star. Same conversation. George, what do you have for your insurance right now? I have Obamacare. So let me ask you a question, George. If there's one thing that you could change about that insurance, what would it be? Open-ended questions. Guess what? Closed-ended questions do what? They close the door. Open-ended questions open the door. So all of a sudden, George tells me, well, I would want a plan without a high deductible. So what has George just told me? George has told me that he's probably had to pay some money out of pocket. George might have some health issues right now. So I'm going to follow that up with, George, how's your health? Well, Greg, it's not so good. I mean, it's fine right now, but I had a heart attack like 2 years ago. And let me ask you a question, George. How did that make you feel when you had that heart attack? I'm digging 3-4 layers back because George is all of a sudden realizing that he's not talking to a lounge act right now. He's talking to a rock star. And that's what you have to do in your discovery process, is stop treating it like a checkbox and start treating it like it's a relationship and you're trying to find out how best to help this person out. I call it the illusion of control. They feel like they're controlling things still, but you're giving the illusion of it because you're directing it. And they're giving you information that you can use and they don't even understand what they're doing. Okay, so you have to, at the end of the day, go ahead and, we're getting close on time? 1 minute, okay. Last thing real quick is this, is I call it the pen and paper approach. Okay, on the pen and paper approach is so important is that when you've done your discovery and you found out that I found out I could help George out, I'm going to tell George, grab a pen and paper. Okay, because the pen and paper does 3 things. It creates commitment. George is committed to actually go do something I told him to do. Okay. Secondly, it controls the direction of the call. It keeps me on task because I know exactly which direction to go down. If they try pulling me off, I know, hey, I haven't got to section 2 yet, I haven't got to section 3 yet. And it also correlates to retention because they start retaining what you're saying. Okay. The last thing real quick, I don't have really time to go into it. I would ask every one of you, if you want to learn more about how to be a Medicare sales rock star, join our Facebook group, Medicare Rockstars. I handed those out earlier. Come grab one from me. But as a sales rock star, you have to expect resistance on every single phone call. Every single phone call, you have to accept resistance. You have to expect resistance. I've had some of the greatest phone calls that were referrals that I thought this person was going to go ahead and name their child after me. That all of a sudden at the end just went crazy. You have to expect resistance on every phone call during the entire phone call. Okay? I want to thank you guys for being here. Hopefully you guys walked out with some good stuff.